high-tech oils. Available from Auto One, Sprint Auto Parts, and all leading independent auto stores.
Truck racing's a pretty good category actually. It's all, we've got heavy rigs here. We all go 160 k's an hour and it's full of excitement.
It's really a car on steroids, but you're so high, there's got a lot of inertia, there's a lot of, there's a little bit of beef and a bargain and whatever, and the crowd actually love it, you know?
Absolute madness, chaos, smoke and dust.
Top speed is 160. It absolutely feels like you are on a 747. It is flying.
They've got a lot of power. They're nice and loose on the track, so you're sliding all over the place. And yeah, have a bit of biff and barge on occasion.
You know, they're not designed to go quick, but we make them do all those three things, and they certainly don't steer very well, but you know, we do all that, we manage them, we wrestle them around the track, and we get the job done.
It's the camaraderie in the pit lane, you know, it's just fantastic. Doesn't matter whether you're a big truck, light truck, new driver, we don't care who you are, we're just going to have a go and try and get around you.
Once we put our helmets on and we're outside, it's a completely different story, but in here everyone helps us, everyone helps each other, you know.
Oh yes, there's a real rumble here today at Wakefield Park because the Supertrucks are heading out for the first round of their championship. This is how they are, I suppose, meant to line up, Lockie, but unfortunately Stephen Zammit is not going to be taking the grid today.
No, some mechanical problems for our reigning champion earlier in the weekend, so that means that Michael Coulter in the Isuzu light truck has the front row of the grid all to himself as we get ready for the first race, round one of the Australian Supertruck Championship.
Great to have Lockie Mansell alongside me, a man who knows the layout of this track very, very well. It's a tight track for the big trucks to race around, and a fair bit of dust and sand as they kick on through turns 1 and 2. And unfortunately, Coulter's dropped back 2 spots at the start.
Yeah, the light truck doesn't have the horsepower of some of the bigger super trucks, and he's conceded 2 spots to Paul Rangers and also Frank Amoroso on the run through turns 1 and 2.
Oh, Rangers just takes a very shallow approach, and avoiding him is Amoroso. Usually these trucks struggle to get around the corners side by side, and that was the case there as the lighter trucks make up a little bit of time throughout the twisty part here of Wakefield Park.
On board now with Frank Amoroso, who has the light truck of Michael Coulter right on his tail. Of course, Michael Coulter's dad, Steve Coulter, very successful in Australian truck racing over the years, and Michael's now taken the wheel of that Isuzu.
I can't think of another form of motorsport where track position is so important, and getting around Paul Rangers right now is going to be very difficult. Riding on board with Coulter in that lighter truck, Amoroso, the back end slides out, and that was nearly a chance for Coulter to look up the inside.
He feinted to the inside, but then he thought better of it, didn't he, Chad, as they headed down into turn number 10, the final corner. And we can see now coming onto the main straight, the local boy, Fletcher Christian, there in the orange truck's not too far away from the top placings either.
First lap complete, and Paul Rangers has opened up a nice lead, and the man who started on the front row has dropped back to third. As we swing through turns 1 and turn 2, Amoroso so loose in the rear end of that Ute. Good battle for fourth going on as well.
Here comes move down the inside. That's Craig Yardy in the number 8 light truck having a look down the inside of Fletcher Christian. Once again, those lighter trucks do have superior braking and cornering speed compared to the bigger, heavier super trucks, but they lose out in a straight line. One man who's not losing out in a straight line is our race leader, Paul Rangers. He's in a Volvo. You know what that means. We could say, Chad, he's giving it some jandle in the front of the field.
It's been a great year for Volvo. All of a sudden, they're just suddenly cool again. Doesn't matter if it's an S60 or the much bigger super truck. And again, looks like he's got the speed to go on with it right now, Yardy, but it's just a matter of, Coulter, I should say, but it's just a matter of the track position not really working out for him. He looks to almost be the quickest out of these front 3.
The comment that you made about track position being critical was a valid one, Chad, because these trucks are so wide, just finding the room to squeeze through is as much of a challenge as anything.
Yeah, Coulter in the Pertex-sponsored Isuzu definitely has the faster truck through the back part. He's going to try and get a run onto the straight, but the problem is he hasn't got the horsepower. He took a wide entry to try and lay the power down early, but you can see the difference between the 2 trucks in a straight line.
So Amoroso will just pull well ahead now of Coulter, who's doing a good job to stay right on the tail of Amoroso. Then it's a big gap that's now opened up back to Fletcher Christian, Craig Yardy, Kevin Anderson and Barry Butwell completing the field.
Much better on the brakes as well as Michael Coulter. He just needs to make the move stick somewhere through this part of the track where it gets a little bit tighter. And your race leader Rangers just drops the wheel off the inside of the curb. We go through 3 and 4.
I'll tell you what, they might be big, heavy trucks with a high centre of gravity compared to the race cars that we normally see at Wakefield Park, but they don't mind throwing them around. Look at that, up over the curbs using absolutely all of the track.
Coulter is absolutely hounding Amoroso for second position right now. A good chance to just see how the rear end of these trucks does slide around, and that's the problem that Amoroso's probably having right now, is that thing's set up very loose in the rear end. Good battle going on right now with Yardy.
Trying to go round the outside of Fletcher Christian through the fishhook. If he can hold his position there on the outside, he'll actually have the inside for the next corner, turn 9, and he's been able to pull it off. Great move.
Well, that's a display of what these lighter trucks can do, and that's probably what we need to see from Coulter through that back part of the circuit. If he's eventually going to get around Amoroso, that's where he needs to do it, because he's never going to get it done on the front straight.
And we can see in the background there that Christian's now coming under attack from Yardy's Paracar Trailers teammate in Kevin Anderson as well. A replay once again of this brilliant move. Yardy went to the outside of the fishhook, which then gave him the inside line for the next corner, turn 9.
Fletcher Christian would have been surprised by that, because he had the inside sit through the fishhook, and you would be not expecting in a truck someone to be able to drive around the outside, as Anderson and Butwell now do battle. Loving the difference between the super trucks and these lighter trucks, fighting the whole way through the field.
It makes for entertaining racing, having the trucks that have got their strengths and weaknesses in different parts of the racetrack. Barry Butwell on board a brand new truck for this weekend, and there's another one of those being built that's going to make its debut a bit later on in the season in the hands of Marcus Prilwin. So good to see some new trucks being built to compete in this series, as we see Amoroso very wide at the fishhook, almost throws it off, but somehow manages to gather it up, regain his composure and hold on to second spot.
Through the plume he goes, but it was a big moment. He overcooked it at the entry, and we were saying earlier how loose the rear end of Amoroso's truck has been, as we go hard under brakes once again to round off another lap, and into the pits comes Michael Coulter. So the Pertec truck has a problem, and he brings that Isuzu down pit lane.
Oh, it's a great shame, isn't it, as we see once again this replay of Amoroso running very wide out of the fishhook. All 4 wheels off the racetrack, but unfortunately Michael Coulter's race looks to be over, and that'll no doubt hurt his championship point score for this weekend as well.
Yeah, so that has actually promoted Craig Yardy up to 3rd. So he was 5th earlier, managed to get by one truck, and then one falls off the road ahead of him, and he finds himself up inside the top 3. So looking good for New South Welshman Craig Yardy.
But it is the final lap, and Paul Rangers has controlled this race pretty much from the very start, when he was able to take the lead on the run down into turn number 1. One corner left to negotiate for the number 9 Volvo driver, and after a pretty comprehensive performance, he's going to pick up victory in this one.
With the reigning champ watching on from the pits, the first race of the championship will go to Paul Rangers. Did it from start to finish, flag to flag. And here at Wakefield Park for the first round of the championship, it's a win going the way of the Volvo. Second home will be Frank Amoroso, and a wild drive it was in the Kenworth.
It was spectacular, no question about that. Confirmation of the results, as we see there, the non-finish for Michael Coulter, the non-start for our reigning champion, Steve Zammit.
Yeah, it's a nice win. It's good to get the first one out of the way for the season, and yeah, hopefully there's many more.
Not the way I wanted to win a race, but with young Michael, having to leave the track, but take a win where I can.
Well, one race down, but there's still 2 to go. Wakefield Park is where the action is. First round of the Australian Supertruck Championship. You don't want to miss the next 2 races after this.
We've got 2 categories, a super truck and a light truck, virtually, and there's also a B-class truck which run a manual gearbox.
The light trucks are a lot more nimble. They go around the corner. You just got to get used to the body roll. The big trucks are just basically a drag race car. They're just a straight line, under corners, under brakes. They're nothing on what we have with our light truck.
It's a David and Goliath, what's the name? So, but they get a little bit intimidated because we're a hell of a lot bigger than what they are. So when you sit in their truck, they're sort of looking at us thinking, Jesus, don't punk me because we will knock us into the 6th Avenue,
Our engine is basically not far off standard engine. The pistons have been ceramic coated. They've been machined. They're flat top piston. Basically, it's a standard engine just with a massive turbo. Our engine's 6.5 litre and it's at roughly about 650 horsepower.
We're running a 14 litre Cummins engine with twin turbos with a 5-speed Allison automatic, and we're probably making about 1,500 odd horsepower. It's a mechanical motor, not electronic. And really what we've done is just sort of lowered compression ratios, changed the different turbo aspects of them because they're twin turbos. We run about 60 odd pounds of boost. And really the camshaft's been played with, and the injectors are, I suppose they're like tips out of gurney pressure washers. But basically the actual engine structure is virtually a standard motor.
Our thing's got V8 supercar brakes. You've got to stand on the pedal and just hope for the best. They're once the temperature comes up in them, they're really good. You will not lock the wheel up. They're really good on the under brakes.
They're a composite cast iron brake drum that's been manufactured for us. So we use a couple of different particular linings in them. So we've got like a normal road truck, say, got 7-inch brakes. This has got 9-inch brakes front and rear. And it stops reasonably well, but a few of the boys now on the bigger trucks have actually started to go to disc brakes. So the disc brakes seem to be working better. It's just a matter of what you prefer to do, actually.
I feel like David and Goliath is one way of wording it. It's kind of like Goliath versus bigger Goliath, though, in the truck world, as we get ready for the second race, Lockie. Reverse grid, so this should be entertaining.
So Barry Butwell, who finished last in the previous race, he's on pole position. Kevin Anderson alongside him on the front row. Paul Ranger's out. Race number 1 win will come from grid position 6. Michael Coulter, of course, he scored a DNF in race 1. Off the back of the grid as we get ready for the double file rolling start. And look at the start from Amoroso straight through the middle, straight away, not wasting any time in trying to carve his way to the front of the field.
Very impressive from the man who finished second in the first race, and he might have the inside sit. Oh, sideways at the front. Amoroso's going to split another row. He did it on the approach of turn 1. He does it at the exit of turn 2, and he's already driven his way to the lead of the race. Very impressive.
5th to 1st in barely more than 2 corners. That was a mega start from Frank Amoroso, who now has a couple of light trucks between himself and the next super truck, Fletcher Christian.
This is working out very nicely for the Kenworth driver. We said earlier that if you can go 2 wide in a super truck, you're doing well. Well, that was 3 wide on 2 separate occasions. Very, very impressive from the very colourful man of Frank Amoroso, the Victorian, as we now ride back with Michael Coulter. DNF in the first race earlier and desperate to try and make up a few spots.
The advantage here now for Amoroso is because he's got to the lead so quickly, he has clear track, whereas his main rival, Paul Rangers, is still struggling to work his way through the traffic.
Yeah, he still had Yardy and Christian ahead of him, and there's more going on as we figure out whether or not we're going to get Rangers to the front. He's trying to weave his way through. He needed to get a bit more aggressive. He's coming onto the front straight behind some of those light trucks now, and a big slide out the back. Man, these things are so loose in the rear. Big slide from Rangers as he lays the power down onto the front straight once more.
Look at the lead that Amoroso has already after the first lap. He's cleared out. You'll find that the light trucks of Anderson and Yardy are 2nd and 3rd. Then the local boy from just up the road from Wakefield Park, Fletcher Christian, in position 4 at this stage. Then it's back to Rangers, who's only just past Barry Butwell. And there's Michael Coulter at the back of the field, and that Pertec Isuzu light truck puffing a fair bit of smoke as well.
Yeah, so the troubles that plagued that truck in the first race today maybe haven't been sorted out, which is disappointing because he's got so much speed with that truck, but reliability letting him down just a little bit. Riding on board with him right now, even with the problems he's having, he's still got plenty of speed. He's all over the back of Barry Butwell.
And where he needs to try and pass Butwell will be into the official, because that'll allow him to extend enough of a margin that Butwell won't just be able to drive straight back past him down the straight, but not able to do it this time round. Butwell taking a defensive line through the official.
You need to take the Yardy approach, hang it on the outside. That's probably the way to go. Maybe a chance to go late under brakes. We know how good the lighter trucks are, these B-class trucks under brakes, and he should be able to get it done through the back part of the circuit as we come back onto the front straight and letting it all hang out. Fletcher Christian.
Craig Yardy looking to line up his teammate Kevin Anderson here to Caracan Trailers trucks from the north coast of New South Wales. Swap positions, Yardy now up into 2nd spot behind Amoroso. Christian, as a result of getting so sideways at turn 10, lost a lot of momentum, and that's actually allowed Paul Rangers to get through up into 4th spot.
Rangers is going to be like the wolf in sheep's clothing here as he approaches the faster trucks, and the front axle bouncing around, overcooks it, and runs off. He just made that small mistake on the approach, and all that hard work could be about to be undone because Fletcher Christian will get that spot back.
That was trying to make the outside move there on the run up into turn 3 on Kevin Anderson. Just got way out into the dirty stuff, had no control and understeer aplenty as he went spearing off into the dirt.
Yeah, the right front was already on the dirt when he first grabbed that brake pedal, and that was what did a fair bit of damage there. He loses one spot as a result. Amoroso still sitting pretty, but Craig Yardy's not really dropping too far off here.
Yardy's keeping him honest. Once again, that's a great job from one of the light truck competitors as Christian makes the move down the inside of Anderson into turn number 2. The two trucks will go side by side. Anderson will try and go the long way round, but drops the left rear out into the dust. That'll cost him exit speed, and Christian gets ahead, heading up the hill.
I think Rangers would just be happy that he doesn't have to do the job around the outside again. Like we saw earlier, that's where it all went wrong. Again, these smaller trucks close up through the tight and twisty parts of the racetrack, and he's in a Supertruck sandwich right now is Kevin Anderson. Tyres squealing around, and let's just see this move once again. Watch the left rear of the number 12 as it just drops off and very, very sideways.
I don't think there was actually any contact between the two trucks there, Chad. I think it was a case of maybe Anderson just being a bit too polite, giving Christian a bit too much room, if anything.
This is a good battle at the front here. Amoroso and Yardy turning very similar lap times, and that gap holding steady. Fletcher Christian has still hanging in there for third at the moment, and I thought Rangers might be able to catch him and take third spot back off him, but at the moment it hasn't been the way.
So onto the last lap now, and Frank Amoroso has been around the Super Trucks for what seems like a couple of decades, Chad, and always been there or thereabouts, near or at the front of the field, and renowned for his spectacular driving style.
Last chance for the Isuzu of Craig Yardy to close up, maybe through the fish hook. We know that he likes that part of the racetrack. Needs to get it done because this is the last lap. Only a handful of corners remain. Needs to be a bit closer though to make it stick.
And we saw in the foreground of shot there, Michael Coulter. He's now the best part of the lap down, so the mechanical woes continue for that Pertec Isuzu, which is a great shame after the good form that he showed in the opening race.
Riding on board the Kenworth for Frank Amoroso. Last few corners, and if there's a place to do it, he's got to be brave under brakes. Amoroso just moves over to the right-hand side to make sure that there was no chance of the smaller truck diving up the inside. He'll have the horsepower to get the job done from here.
Smart defensive driving there from Amoroso heading into the last corner, and now he will have the straight line speed to make sure that he will take the checkered flag first. Bit of waving left and right as he celebrates race victory in race number 2 of the Super Trucks in Wakefield Park.
That was a superb drive from Frank Amoroso. Got the job done at the start when it mattered, picking up 4 spots in a couple of corners in spectacular fashion. Craig Yardy closed that gap but couldn't do it. Race 1 winner Paul Rangers could only summons 4.
Anderson, Butwell and Coulter rounding out the finishes.
I've got a bit of a problem. I've done a rocker box, which is on the valve rocker timing. It's actually slipped forward and it's got a miss in it, and I've just been pinching the front brake, but we managed to get through the pack at the start there. There wasn't much room between us, 3 wide into that bottom corner, but we got in front and stayed there, and we won the race, so that we did quite good.
Mate, the engine's just getting tired. It's real old now. Yeah, like you said, it's done 9 championships in a row now, so it's just time it's getting for a rebuild. It's just pushing a bit of oil out of the breather, straight onto the exhaust, hence all the white smoke, and unfortunately we're done for the day.
Yes, that's very disappointing for Michael Coulter in the Pertec truck, and we're left with one final race, and again we get to see the fast guys coming from the back.
So it's a shame, isn't it? A couple of our championship contenders down and out. Stephen Zammit not starting the races with mechanical problems earlier in the weekend, and now Michael Coulter out as well. But Barry Butwell on pole, Christian Yardy, Anderson, Amoroso and Rangers. A reverse of the qualifying time, so the fast trucks coming from the back once again.
Can Amoroso get the jump like he did earlier when he went flying up in between the 2 rows? Watch out for number 96. He's lurking. He's looking at that gap once again, but I don't think he's going to have a chance this time as we go green.
Barry Butwell, pretty good start. He will lead the way down into turns number 1 and 2. The 2 light trucks run line astern with Yardy on the inside of Anderson, and having a look up the inside of Christian as well. The other light truck of Anderson goes wide at turn 2, disappears in a cloud of dust and will rejoin at the back of the field. Amoroso up into 3rd spot, might be 2nd here. A bit of a touch with Christian, and he spun Christian around contact between the two trucks, and the local driver ends up at the rear of the field.
He's using the bumpers to get to the front today. Frank Amoroso up to second, but it comes at the expense of poor Fletch, who got turned around down there at turn 3. It was very tight quarters, and I wonder what will be said about that one after the race as it continues right now. And wow, these things are so good under brakes. And Craig Yardy, oh no, your race leader has spun. Barry Butwell all on his own, I thought, as well.
Yeah, finds himself facing the wrong way at the fishhook, and I think you're right there, Chad. It didn't look like any of the other trucks were close enough to make contact, so I'd suggest that he's done that all on his own, unassisted.
Gee, that really cost Craig Yardy. He was looking fast on the outside but got held up, and the man who really jumped out of all that was Rangers.
But guess who's back in the lead? Frank Amoroso, our previous race winner, finds himself back at the front of the field. Didn't surge to the front like he did in the previous race, but even so, still able to sense opportunities and take advantage of them when they presented themselves. So he now finds himself in at the race lead, ahead of Paul Rangers, who we know has a pretty quick truck as well. So it will be interesting to see if Rangers can close that gap over the rest of this race.
That was a very eventful first lap. The two guys who started on the back row have found their way to first and second, and the two guys who started on the first row both spun around at one point, one assisted and maybe one unassisted, and it left the two guys in the second row still in the middle of the field. So they've jumbled themselves up in the space of just one lap, but Yardy still seems to be very quick. He's in third at the moment, looking to close that gap up behind Rangers.
His teammate Kevin Anderson drives pretty spectacularly as well. Here's a replay of that incident between Amoroso and Christian, and definitely contact between the two trucks as Amoroso looked up the inside, and well, he had his left wheels right over the curb on the grass, didn't he? So it was just a case there of not quite enough room for two super trucks to file through one of the narrowest corners on the racetrack.
And that's Butwell, and that was definitely unassisted. And Big Mac losing the rear end on approach to the fishhook. You've got to say that move of Amoroso's, it definitely wasn't on, but he was not taking no for an answer down there at turn 3 as we swing through for another lap. And have a look at this, Yardy's really closing up on our race 1 winner.
You're right, Chad, when you mentioned that Yardy was quick, but as the very famous commentator Murray Walker would say, catching is one thing, passing is another thing altogether, and in no more category is that true than the super trucks.
Well, apart from Amoroso and his amazing skill on the first lap, Yardy's been the one to watch when it comes to overtaking, but he needs to make the most of the truck's capabilities, which are better brakes and a bit more nimble around the tighter parts of the circuit.
Once again, I think the fishhook turn number 8 is going to be his best opportunity for a passing move. We saw him do it on the outside of Fletcher Christian in one of the earlier races. Let's see if he can do it again as we go to a battle a bit further down the order. This is the two recovering drivers, Christian and Butwell.
Yep, they're fighting over 5th position at the moment after starting alongside each other on the front row. You're riding on board the Mack truck of Barry Butwell, and he's eyeing off a move right now. Victoria up against New South Wales down towards turn 8.
The other point that we should make is that Fletcher Christian's truck has a manual gearbox. Barry Butwell's truck has an automatic gearbox. Some of the super trucks do actually have automatic gearboxes. Not something we normally talk about in motor racing, is it? Vehicles having automatic transmissions, but in the trucks that's what they often run with.
Automatic 5 speeds, under brakes, turn 10, last corner, and look at the understeer. Massive amounts of understeer for Christian. He runs very wide on the final corner at Wakefield Park, and Barry Butwell will pick up 5th.
Looks like Christian just out-braked himself there under pressure, and he will drop back to position 6 right at the tail end of the field after that error as we hit the final lap now. And Rangers has definitely closed the gap on Amoroso, but don't think he's going to be quite within striking distance of having a crack at the lead.
He's driven away from Craig Yardy over the space of the last 2 laps. 4th position right now being held down by Kevin Anderson. One of 4 New South Welshmen that we currently have out there in this race, and loving the different marks that we do have out there. Kenworths, Isuzus, Volvos, Max. It's a real mix. And it looks like this is going to be Amoroso's. A handful of corners remain. He just needs to bring it home in one piece.
And with a couple of race victories from the weekend and a big solid haul of points, you would think that this would put him in the championship lead heading to round 2 of the series of Winton as well.
4 rounds in this championship, last corner. Rangers closes slightly, needs to get a very good run out of here if he's going to do it. Amoroso maybe just taking his foot off the gas a little bit in the closing stages of this race to make sure he's got it done. But he's coming to the checkered flag, and Lockie, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3, the overall round win and the championship lead for Frank Amoroso, who takes out the Super Prix in the Supertruck in Wakefield Park Raceway. Craig Yardy rounds out a consistent weekend, finishing on the podium. Then we'll go back to Kevin Anderson in the second light trucks, with the trucks of Barry Butwell and Fletcher Christian rounding out the field.
Amoroso takes 2 wins and did so from the back in both races. Very impressive. Paul Ranger's second this time out. Pair of Isuzus third and fourth.
I knew I had to get to the front, and Fletch left me enough room, but then decided to shut the door on me a little bit. It's unfortunately he got turned around, but no, I made it through to the front, and I had a nice easy race from the front actually.
10 laps is a long time to race these trucks around a tight track like this on brakes, and you know, just lucky to bring it home.
Congratulations to Frank Amoroso on his win, Lockie. They're a real fan favourite, and it's good to see the trucks back.
And they'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time for the next round of their series at Winton Motor Raceway. That's coming up on the 4th and 5th of October, and then back at Wakefield Park for the final round at the end of November.
Amoroso, Rangers, Yardy, those are the guys who filled the podium here, round 1 of the Supertrucks.